We've got Jacob Rees-Mogg with us as well down the line as we watch these live pictures from Downing Street. Good morning, Jacob. I'm dying to hear your assessment of this situation. How long do you think it's been in the running that David Cameron was on standby to become Foreign Secretary?
I have no idea. I mean, it's certainly very interesting. The last time a former Prime Minister, came back was Alec Douglas-Home, and that was in the 1970 cabinet. So this is a long time since a Prime Minister has been willing to serve former Prime Minister in a less senior role. It used to happen the whole time in the 19th century, and indeed into the 20th century, but about 50 years since it last happened.
Sacking of Suella Braverman, Jacob.
I think it's a mistake that Suella understands what the country thinks about migration, the concerns the country has, is serious about it, was determined to get it down. Sometimes she spoke in a way that others were a bit squeamish about, but that's not really the point. The point is that as Home Secretary, she was committed to delivering something that the country thinks is important.
Why has he done it?
Why has he done it? Well, I think that he has a different view on migration. And I don't just mean illegal migration. I mean legal migration too. That you see, the small boats may be 50,000, but legal migration last year was 606,000. And there's strong pressure from the Treasury to keep it at those levels. And so Suella rightly understood that large-scale legal migration is problematic as well, and she had proposals for reducing it, which the Prime Minister didn't seem to be in favour of.
But unless he does take a harder line on migration, Jacob, he's going to lose the next election because it repeatedly appears in the top three issues that people feel really strongly about.
I think from the point of view of the Conservatives winning the next election, today is a mistake because Suella understood what the British voter thought and was trying to do something about it.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that the Prime Minister is not as well attuned to the voters' concerns as Suella Braverman.
And what about Mr Cleverly? You know him very well. Do you think he's plugged into the fact that the country is very anxious about the high levels of immigration?
I'm not sure that James is a first-class man, that there is nobody in Parliament who doesn't like and think well of James. So that's always important in politics, and he's very popular when broadcasting. So he's an excellent spokesman for conservatism. He's never particularly made his name on the migration issue, so I don't think it's particularly clear what his view is, but it's unlikely to be as tough as that of either Suella or indeed of Priti Patel before her.
Would you suggest that these changes indicate that the result on Wednesday from the Supreme Court about the Rwanda ruling will not go in the government's favour?
I don't know. I assume the Supreme Court keeps its judgments absolutely confidential until they're read out. I don't expect the government knows. I would certainly assume not. If the government does lose on Wednesday, it has to legislate to override the Human Rights Act and override the European Convention on Human Rights and to campaign to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. If the government's squeamish about that, then it won't deal with the illegal boats, let alone with legal migration.
And do we know what James Cleverly's position on that is?
Not attributably, no. I don't know his specific views on Rwanda or on the ECHR.
Do you see, Jacob, Suella will be on the backbenches. She's made it clear she's going to speak out. She will speak out on the European Court, of course. Is she going to be, in your view, a very serious contender to be the next leader of the Conservative Party if the Tories lose the next general election?
Suella was a serious contender last year when Boris went. She did much better than people had expected. She is a formidable politician. And importantly, she has her finger on what people think. She's not somebody who has been absorbed by the blob.
Jacob, before the weekend there was so much speculation about whether these Armistice Day protests should go ahead. I'm right in thinking that you did believe that we should allow people to protest peacefully on the streets. Do you look back at the weekend and think that was the right decision now?
I think the law is right, that the police make the decision on intelligence, but that there should be a high bar for banning protests. There were instances of disorder and crime. And I think it's right to hold the police to account for that. I think we need to see a full audit, really, of the levels of crime that there were. But we are a free country, and protest is important. But it's not a free country to say anti-Semitic things and stir up hatred.
Jacob, what does David Cameron bring to this government, and what do you think he brings in the eyes of the electorate?
Well, it's very nice to have an old Etonian back in the cabinet, which we haven't had for since I left. And I think this is very important, and there will be some champagne corks being popped in SL4 this afternoon.
Except not with those people, of course, who want to vote for the Conservative Party but think it is just full of old Etonians and you're all just keeping each other in the loop, and that actually maybe it's time for some non-old Etonians to be in government.
Well, the Prime Minister's a Wickhamist, so we haven't got that many old Etonians. There's only one in the Cabinet at the moment. Dare I say I wasn't being entirely serious with that point.
Can I ask you, Jacob, just finally before we let you go, do you think some Brexiteers like yourself may find this an appointment, will not approve of the appointment because of Cameron's position on Brexit, Project Fear, and his botched negotiation with the EU, that he should not be brought back at all?
Well, I think it's lucky that Nigel's gone off to the jungle and we won't be hearing his views on this.
What's your view?
David Cameron got the Brexit issue wrong in terms of the Conservative Party and indeed the country at large who voted to leave. But he did give us the choice to have the vote. Without him, we wouldn't have had that referendum. He's a highly intelligent, capable individual. But will this potentially push some people off to reform is a question for the pollsters.
Do you think he's been brought in because Rishi Sunak knows that he's not terribly popular, which is quite an understatement actually, with the voters, and he feels that David Cameron has that familiarity, he's much more of a warm person, you know, he's always been very good in front of the camera. Is that why he's been brought in?
If you'd wanted to bring back somebody who was popular and charismatic and appealed to the voters, there's a former Foreign Secretary and one-time Prime Minister who might have been brought back, I think has a much greater electoral reach than David Cameron, able though David Cameron is.
It's too big. Like, Rishi Sunak would not want Boris there because he would overshadow the popularity of Rishi Sunak. Whereas David Cameron, if you think of Rishi Sunak as being head boy, you alluded to his time at Winchester, well, David Cameron is the brilliant deputy head boy, isn't he? He's good, but maybe not too good.
I'm not sure this is a contest of popularity between the two of them, really. That I'm not sure either of them poll particularly well at the moment.
Right, all right, that's Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Thank you,
great
Jacob.
to talk to you, Jacob.